Hello and welcome back to New Wave Global. This is Raza Rumi and I'm back with another video. And this is about China's silent takeover, which has been happening in South and Western Asia. And I have been actually thinking about it, looking at the events in the past few weeks and months. How is it all playing out? And before I go on, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe, share this video, like it, leave a comment. We are doing this just to make sure that we have a broader debate and your comments. I know some of your comments are not very happy comments, but it's okay. We can agree to disagree, and every time you leave a comment, I also learn something. So thank you for being there and leaving a comment. So what is happening in Asia, especially Southern and Western Asia? Now, this is the real changing scenario or the power game which is being played out in our lifetime as we speak. So, from the ancient Silk Road to today's Belt and Road Initiative, China has always dreamed big. But what we are seeing now is something even more ambitious, a quiet, strategic expansion of Chinese influence across South and West Asia. Countries are signing deals, building infrastructure, and receiving loans from China. But there's one exception in this: India. So, what's going on there, and what does this mean for the future of the region and the balance of global power? As all of it will have impact, what is happening in the Middle East, in West Asia, and South Asia, it's going to change the world power system. A lot is being written about it, but anyway, let me enumerate some of the key developments that concern this region and also how China is making great strides or great leaps forward, if I may add that. It all starts with money and infrastructure, brick and mortar. China's influence is spreading not through conquest, but through concrete infrastructure. Interesting. In Pakistan, the $60 billion China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC as it's called, is the flagship of China's Belt and Road Initiative. There have been snags and delays largely due to security conditions in southern Pakistan and the province of Balochistan, and Pakistan government's inability to take more loans to implement some of those projects, but they're very much on the table. They've not been shelved, and I think Pakistan is very committed in undertaking those in the future. Pakistan's Foreign Office strongly defends this project and its establishment, its military, its politicians. In the past, they've been calling it transformational, contributing with the potential to contribute to economic development, not just in Pakistan, but in the region. And the claims which the United States and in Indian media about Pakistan's soaring debt, which the government of Pakistan denies, are somewhat true as well, because Pakistan won a large segment of Pakistan's total debt liabilities due to these projects. But then remember, these projects are going to lead to returns in the future. In Iran, which was recently attacked by Israel, since 2021, they have a 25-year agreement for investments in ports, energy, telecom, and they call it a comprehensive strategic partnership. In fact, Chinese foreign minister had noted then, and I quote, China supports Iran in safeguarding its national sovereignty and dignity. Our cooperation is not targeted at any third party. And then, of course, let's talk a bit about Afghanistan. For 20 years, and even before that, Afghanistan has been in deep conflict. It still is it's a tenuous peace which is there. But even in Afghanistan, China is eyeing natural resources, lithium, copper, and rare earths. Even as the Taliban government remains unrecognized, Beijing has maintained diplomatic engagement and signed major investment deals in early 2023. Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, let's move further. because I mean, some people call it encirclement, some people call it, very quiet, way of asserting Chinese economic power. And of course, with that comes a strategic and security pivot. And that is what I would like to mention. Pakistan and Chinese defense are now fused. Earlier, it was used as an alliance or as a partnership. Now there's a fusion. We saw it in the recent conflict with India, where the Chinese and Pakistani, I mean, Indian commentators are saying we have to fight these two countries together. And so China has become the most reliable military partner after the US stopped selling most arms, etc. Joint exercises, technology transfers, defense cooperation are deepening. So I think one of the Chinese ambassadors to Pakistan, Jiang Zhaidong, put it plainly. We firmly support Pakistan in safeguarding its sovereignty and national dignity and achieving unity and stability. Very similar to what they have been saying about Iran, right? Note the key words. So that's the kind of a different approach to regional and world affairs by the Chinese for Iran, for Pakistan. But even allies hit turbulence. After multiple attacks on Chinese personnel, Ambassador Jiang had warned it is unacceptable for us to be attacked repeatedly. The Pakistani side must ensure the safety of Chinese citizens and interests. Now, reportedly, there are over 100,000 Chinese nationals in Pakistan working in different capacities as engineers, as workers, as supervisors, etc., etc. And basically, that is something that Pakistan has to work out internally and with China as well. And apparently, there have been talks which have been ongoing. Let's see what they result in. So in Iran, Beijing's access to Persian Gulf has increased. China has trained Iranian military personnel and boosted naval exchanges. While there are no Chinese bases yet, the strategic footprint is growing. Very quietly, but certainly and surely. That is, I mean, if you look at the maps as well, how step by step the Chinese are sort of making their presence felt. And then further north, Chinese surveillance systems now monitor city streets in Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. Remember, these were once vassals of the Soviet Union, part of the Soviet Union, then they became independent after the fall of Berlin Wall. Now the Chinese have gotten there and brought in technology. So their technology is exported as part of the digital Silk Road, enable regional governments to tighten control in line with China's domestic model. So it's not just the Chinese economic interests, let me add, it's also the Chinese political system. And critics within Pakistan suggest that Pakistan's alignment in China has obviously led to the democratic deficit growing, because that is what the Chinese model results in better economic progress. So they're saying, what's democracy and what are human rights? I mean, that's a separate story. We'll talk about that later. Now, what's happening with India? India is moving in an opposite direction. Of course, there's an older rivalry, etc. But India actually views China as its primary strategic threat. In fact, they're saying, oh, Pakistan is nobody. We don't want to be hyphenated. It's China that we are faced as a major foe or adversary. Since the 2020 Galwan clashes, where soldiers died in brutal hand-to-hand combat, tensions have remained high. India has banned Chinese apps and reoriented military strategy along the border. In fact, India's Defense Minister Rajnath Singh recently stated that India is committed to defending its sovereignty. Any unilateral change of status quo by China will not be tolerated, which is in terms of territory, because they have border disputes as well. But the critics within India blame the Modi government for being a bit soft on China and not as hardline as it saw with Pakistan. And in fact, they say, well, de facto China has taken some Indian territory, which again is something to be sorted out in the years to come, I suppose. But as India hardens its stance, its neighbors are drifting away. Nepal has signed a new trade and transport deal. with China. Trade and transport, in fact, there are more deals as well. I've forgotten it now. Sri Lanka handed over the Hambano Tota port to Chinese control on a 99-year long lease. Maldives and Bangladesh are also leaning towards a more balanced diplomacy, hedging between India and China. And in fact, the recent changes in Bangladesh have resulted in a change in alignment where very expressly the new Bangladeshi government is trying to project itself as a Chinese partner or ally. And in fact, may I add that they are even thinking of creating an alternative South Asian forum, an alternative to the SARC, the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, SARC, which is moribund or literally dead because of India-Pakistan dispute. So recently, they just met in, I think, Kunming about 2 days ago. The Chinese, Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, and now they're thinking of creating a parallel organization like the SCO, which is again an expansion of Chinese sphere. So as China cements its influence from Xinjiang to Gwadar, from Tehran to Kabul, to roads, ports, and digital infrastructure, and it builds a pan-Eurasian corridor, a strategic arc of connectivity that bypasses Western oversight. So that's the scenario number one, which is that Chinese go on and expand their sphere and, succeed. In the second scenario, there may be resistance and realignment. So the West, led by the United States, increases pressure on countries participating in China's Belt and Road Initiative. In 2020, for example, I remember the US diplomat Alice Wells had warned that CPEC is not aid. It's a form of financing that is not transparent and will increase debt dependency, etc., etc. Some South Asian countries, now cautious of Beijing's terms, may begin to push back. It's likely. There are noises in Latin America and China as well, in Africa, not China, where they are talking about the debt dependency. But so far, there has been no major pushback to the Chinese plans. What's the scenario 3? The great competition, which is that we enter a new Cold War style rivalry. India deepens its strategic alignment with the United States, Japan, and Australia under the Quad, while China doubles down on its strategic ties with Pakistan, Iran, and possibly Turkey, and not to mention Russia, which is also at the borders of this region, in fact, very much part of this region, in terms of its economic and historical linkages. South Asia, therefore, becomes the new theater of 21st century geopolitics. And that is a very interesting, development which is taking place. So let me add that this is not just a regional story about South Asia or West Asia. It's actually, as I mentioned earlier, a shift in global power. China is playing a long game, and South and West Asia are the chessboard. With India resisting and the rest of the region tilting eastward, the question isn't whether influence is shifting, but how fast and who will catch up first. It's already there. Pakistan's military dependency on China is 100% now. I mean, a bit from Russia here or there, Turkey, but 80% of its recent purchases have been from China. And India and US, of course, currently are in a bit of a, difficult spot. Because I guess what India traditionally has been doing, its ethos has been non-aligned, since the days of Nehru, the first prime minister. India has avoided completely siding with one bloc or the other bloc and always said we are independent. And now with the changing scenario in India has veered or moved towards the American camp, but not entirely, because if you remember, when Russia attacked Ukraine, India's response was very lukewarm. the Americans wanted India to be more gung ho with Russia, but India does not want to affect its relationship with Russia, which is really old and really strong as well. And similarly, so India is kind of stuck between the old world view and the changing reality. So, is India going to balance the region? Is it going to put its foot forward, or is China's grip already too strong? That remains to be seen. So, do comment and share your thoughts below in the comments box. But let me end with this: that the world will not be the same. And we already know it's not the same. Already there's so many realignments and shifts, but it's going to be a very rapid change with this Chinese sphere expanding. And therefore, India will have to check and decide where it is going to be. Some commentators like Praveen Sawhney, who's a very noted defense analyst, says that India should actually enter into a partnership with China and become a leader of the global south instead of looking itself as an ally of the West. But again, I think his ideas are the minority ideas. The majority view in India is, of course, more realignment with the United States and more economic and geopolitical rivalry or competition for influence with China. So let's see how it plays out. I'll be back with another topic soon. Goodbye for now.